What is up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Today's reaction video is the don'ts of visiting the US. 7 things I wouldn't do in America, part 2. First part, I think people enjoyed. I feel like it was maybe a bit of a, like, 75% was like, yeah, 25% was like maybe a bit wrong.
Yeah.
Again, this is everyone's different experiences, so it's going to be different. This is a channel where she's from America.
Yeah.
Now lives in France.
Yes.
Her link's in the description as always, but stay here, watch the video, would really appreciate it. Smash that like button, smash that subscribe button, and if you didn't know, we were coming to America.
Yeah.
So in less than a month, early access will be on Patreon. So if you want to get our early access videos and a few little behind the scenes bits from our America trip, sign up to Patreon now and you get the start of it pretty much towards the end of the month. We'd really appreciate it. But if you just enjoy the videos, supporting and watching these is enough, isn't it?
Yes.
And enjoying yourself is the main thing. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
But don'ts of visiting the US. We need to pay attention to this because we're visiting the US. What we got?
Salut! Welcome back to Unintentionally Frenchified. Today I'm launching part 2 of what not to do when you're visiting the US. So if you haven't seen part 1, you can check it out here. But today I've got 7 new really great tips to share with you. As always, I love hearing in the comments below what you agree with, what you disagree with. If you have any tips for people that you think I should have added to my list, please let me know below. I'm hoping that this video will be very useful when we can all start traveling again safely. Yes. First things first, don't forget to tip.
Yes.
Guys, this is so rude when you actually forget. And I know it can be super confusing, and I understand that it's like, when do you tip? When do you don't tip? How much should I be tipping? And when you're not used to the tipping culture, it can be really confusing. But in the US, it's really important to remember that most servers, people working in restaurants, bartenders, they live off of their tips. So their minimum, like, hourly wage is very small. It's not enough to live on because a majority of, you know, what they're making is coming from tips. So when you get good service and you don't tip, you're really screwing somebody over. So it's really important to keep in mind that tipping in the US is very important.
Do you know what's mad, right? We've done so many of these videos. Tipping is always on there. It's always. I'm surprised it made it to part 2, not part 1. I actually forgot about tipping. I was thinking, like, we're going to be facing. We haven't been yet, and I'm sure as soon as I got there, I'd remember the tip. But, like, we've been going for our schedule now. I never once thought about, we got a tip at this place. Do you know what I mean? It just completely went out of my mind. But we don't have to tip at fast foods.
No.
It's restaurants, and if we go in bars, which we won't be probably going in bars.
And I guess, like, if we get Uber, it's a couple of pounds.
Yeah, Uber just like a taxi, isn't it? Yeah, I think that's it, isn't it?
I guess you don't tip on the bus.
I don't think you tip the bus. You don't tip the bus driver, do you? Because we don't in the UK. And if you do, then we will. But I don't think you do.
I don't know.
I don't think you do. Do you tip a bus driver in America? There's no more comments.
General rule of thumb to give you some ideas of when you tip. We tip when you're in a restaurant, if you're in like a bar or a lounge and you're sitting down and someone's serving you drinks.
Why do we do this?
We tip for taxis and cars and ride shares. If you're getting like a personal service, so for example, a salon, getting your hair done, getting a massage, getting a tattoo, we would tip for that too. And also some smaller things like if someone helps with your luggage at the hotel or at the airport or housekeeping, we tend to leave a bit of tip as well. So in a general rule, I looked this up since I haven't lived in the US in a long time and I wanted to make sure the numbers were right. But on average, most people tip for the smaller stuff like your luggage or housekeeping, somewhere between $2 to $5 that they give. And then if it's a restaurant or a bar, you know, you're sitting down and you're eating or you're drinking, that's more about 15 to 20% of the bill, of the cost of your meal before tax. You don't necessarily have to include tax in your 15 to 20%.
Okay,
I think it
makes sense.
It depends. And of course, the idea is that you're tipping them because you had good service. It's up to your own discretion if the service isn't very good. But one of the great things about living in the US is because people live off of tips, often the service is pretty good.
Hand in hand a bit, isn't it?
Don't talk about very polarizing subjects. If I were you, I would really stay away from things like gun control, politics, abortion. I mean, these really polarizing subjects where people have their points of view and they're very passionate, is the right word maybe, about their points of view. In France, the French love a good debate. And I have been at dinner parties where we've spent hours debating about things and people have very different point of views and they're, really snapping at each other and debating and giving their point of view. And then when it's over, it's done. And the rest of the night just kind of carries on and nobody really thinks about the debate. I would say the general American doesn't have this type of mindset. We tend to be less of a debate culture, and we also tend to have our points of view and be very passionate, which ends up being very aggressive, and then we kind of don't forget what was said during a debate. And obviously I'm generalizing, but if you're going to just visit the US and you don't know people very well there, I think it's just super important to stay away from polarizing subjects. If you know people...
Our logic is, at the end of the day, we're guests. Does not affect us.
No, it doesn't.
Like, in terms of, we don't get a say in it anyway. So why we're not going to bring up them topics.
Yeah.
If someone just randomly starts talking to me about them topics, I'm not going to be rude and go, I don't want to talk about it. I ain't saying going to have an opinion. I was like, yeah, okay,
I feel
okay,
like this
okay,
is similar
okay.
to, like, for Jersey, like the English politics. We can't vote in England.
Oh, Jersey in England, yeah.
So, like, when like, there's some people that bring up politics and all that.
Yeah.
We don't have an opinion because it actually doesn't affect us. There's nothing we can do about it.
Yeah, I mean, people will have opinions, but I really don't have opinions, to be honest.
I don't think I know. I don't know enough to give an opinion.
Yeah, we definitely not as educated.
No.
Each side will have their own argument. If someone talks to me about it, I will just say, okay, yeah, okay. Why not? Because it's been polite. They want to talk about it. They want to talk about it. But we don't have opinions on it, do we? And we definitely won't be bringing up anything like that. Definitely not.
People really well go for it if you feel comfortable, but I don't know, it's really not a good idea to go into a bar, to drink a little bit too much, to start talking to the American next to you and start bringing up, I don't know, their political points of views. The climate in the US about politics is really polarizing right now, and I feel like you're going to get yourself into a conversation that's way more aggressive and maybe like borderline violent if there's alcohol than you had really expected. So I would just say shy away, don't really involve yourself in super polarizing subjects. I just don't think it's worth it on vacation. Do not respond honestly when someone asks, how are you? Somebody you don't know, of course. So when you walk into places like restaurants and stores in the US, we have a greeting in the US where we just say like, hello, how are you? And we're not expecting an honest response back. So normally what I say is like, I'm fine, thank you. And I keep walking if it's a store, or I give my name for the reservation. But I've never been like, oh, actually, I've had a really crap day and I just want to talk to...
I don't ever do, like, if anyone's, I always say, I'm good, thanks, how are you?
Yeah, I'll do that as well.
I would never, even if I was having a bad day, I would not say stand there and to the shopkeeper and say,
it's like...
well, it's raining and I've dropped my card in the rain.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't think I would have the confidence to even do that anyway.
I had a haircut today, as you can see. The reason I bring that up is because my hairdresser was talking about somebody who was doing that exact thing. And he was on about just like how they just literally just moaned about the whole day. And every time I come in, he's like, oh, your day, they'll just moan about the day. So I think I think a lot of people do it over here. I'm the same. If someone, I'll be like, hi, you alright? Like if I'm walking past,
I wouldn't have the confidence, I don't think, just to tell a stranger.
If someone went, hi, you alright to me, I went, yeah, could you? That's literally it.
And also I'm kind of like,
answer will be that.
Yeah, I don't really like talking in public.
Yeah, well, no, I don't mind. I'll have a chat with random, but I'll always I could be bawling my eyes up in the street. Someone walk past me, you alright? Yeah, could you?
I would be bawling my eyes on the street.
Not that I would be. Yeah, I wouldn't be, but you get what I'm saying.
Somebody about it. I don't even know if the person who's asking would know how to respond. So I would just say tip. It's just a polite way of greeting people in the U.S. They're not really respecting a response back. And I know French people are like, well, then why do they say it? But it's just kind of like the way in France you absolutely have to say bonjour to people. Often you're going to get a hi, how are you? And just give a little, I'm fine, thank you, and keep going along your business and you will be just fine. Don't think the price you see is the actual price.
Again, I forgot about this. I forget. I'm sure I won't forget then, but I think the first store we go into, because I just keep forgetting about these things, is I'll buy something. I'm like, I swear that Coke was like a 99 cents. Do you know what I mean, or whatever? But it was actually £1.20. I'm like, what? Yeah. But I'll get used to it.
Sales tax is one of the most annoying things I find when I actually go back to the US now. So something to keep in mind is that the price that you see on something is not actually the final price. It's the price without sales tax. And sales tax is added when you go up to the cashier. It's really, I can't go into detail about how much it is because this really differs by state. And this is also kind of the reason that I've at least read that we don't include sales tax in the final ticket prices, because it changes depending on where you're actually selling the goods.
State,
But in general, you just have to know that you can't really like count your change out exactly before you get up to the cashier, because you never know how much is going to be added on. And of course, when it's like a candy bar that costs like $2, it's not a big deal for the extra 5 cents. But when you're going to buy like a $2,000 like electronic and they add like $250 on top, you're like, oh my gosh, you've got to be kidding me. So it's super frustrating, but just don't ever think that the price that you see is really the final price, because there's always going to be sales tax added on. And if you're in a restaurant, then you've got to add that tip on. So there's just some extra things at the end that you have to figure out.
Okay.
Don't generalize all Americans. I feel like this shouldn't surprise any of the French people out there, because people hate when we talk about Parisian things and we call them French things. And I get this on a lot of my videos if I ever make this mistake. So you shouldn't be too surprised to know that Americans don't love it either. There's just, it's so...
I think everyone...
Yeah, I think so.
Everyone's different in all these different places. Stereotypes, obviously, but yeah, just
don't generalise.
Talk to the person who you're talking to. No need to generalise or stereotype.
Large the U.S. and there's so many states, and in every state you've got your own culture and your own history and often your own vocabulary, your own way of doing things, and so it's normal. But someone from California isn't necessarily going to love being compared to somebody from Massachusetts, because maybe there's a lot of similarities, cultures, but maybe there's a lot of differences. I always talk to my husband about this, because he'll say things like, yeah, well, in the U.S., you can just, you know, when you drive, it's always straight, and like for hours we go straight, and we're never going up and down. And I'm like,
that is true for a lot of it.
Because I'm from the Midwest. And when we go home to visit my family, we're surrounded by cornfields and it's flat. But if you were asked, like my friends in Colorado, if driving is straight and flat, they'd say no, because there's so many mountains. So just keep in mind that the U.S. is huge, and just like France, there's so many different regions and ways of doing things, and depending on where you're visiting and where you're going, your experience could be very different from somebody else visiting a different part of the US. So just, you know, try not to generalize as much as you can, which is kind of funny because I'm literally generalizing right now in this video about Americans, but what can I do? Don't walk in someone else's yard. So this one sounds like super bizarre, but I've actually seen people get in like shouting matches about people walking in their yard. And when I'm saying yard, I'm not...
Oh, wait, let's see what she says about yard.
I'm talking about like acres of land. I'm talking about literally like a tiny little yard in front of their house. So it sounds crazy, but it's really, I think, more common than you could imagine. So
I don't think that sounds crazy. I feel like if there's a yard or a bit of grass in front of your house and then a pavement, and you're walking on someone's yard, don't walk on the yard.
I wouldn't walk on someone else's front garden.
You don't walk on someone's driveway unless you have to. I mean, if you have to, that's fair enough. Like, the car's going to hit you or something, you've got to go on.
I can't see why you would do that. Unless you're being annoying.
It sounds like most of the time, surely there's no need to go in someone's yard. It's like just walking someone's house.
Yeah.
I know it's not someone's house, and obviously it's different if you're playing football on the street, the ball goes on the yard, you quickly nip on and grab it. Yeah. What?
Like a monster house.
Oh yeah, monster house. But you quickly go on and grab it. That's different, I think. But just walking on it for the sake of walking on it, why would you do that? Why would you do that?
So in the US, technically it is illegal to walk on somebody else's lawn, no matter how big or how small it is. It's actually called trespassing. But I did a bit of research, and just FYI, there is like a slim to no chance that you would ever get a ticket from the police or get in actual trouble for walking on someone else's lawn. However, you might encounter a very aggressive person who takes it very seriously that you're walking on their lawn. So just in general, if you're meandering around towns where you're walking on people's streets, I wouldn't walk in their grass if I can avoid it. And if you're bringing like your dog along, for example, I wouldn't let them do their business in somebody else's grass. And if they do, I would just like pick it up, obviously quickly, and like kind of skedaddle out of there.
Quickly grab it.
It sounds like something so small, but it's really actually, I think, kind of like more important than you would think. So just stick to the sidewalks, look at the houses from afar, and you'll be good to go.
I think it's common sense.
Don't say the U.S. has no history or no culture. So,
we've got to agree with this one. Like in terms of so little, it is little time compared to a lot of other places. Like it is, but there's so much crammed in there.
Yeah.
So much. We're still learning. Didn't know half of it. It has so much history.
Definitely.
So much. Anything else to add?
No, you said it.
I get this quite a bit more than you would think in France. Sometimes when I'm like, oh, I'm homesick for a bit of American culture or history or something, and I get the response like, do you want to go eat a cheeseburger? Or like, wait, you mean the 200 years of history in the U.S. versus like the 1,000 years of history that you have here in France? And I'm like, okay, yes, I get it. We do not have the same like long history that you have in Europe, and you're not like most certainly not going to find like middle-aged buildings on every corner like you can see here. But we still do have some like historical and cultural things to be proud of in the U.S. We've got, great music like the blues and jazz, and we've got Hollywood films, and we do have our own cuisine, and we've got amazing like writers and poets, and we have great like top international schools for education. We do have some things to be proud of, guys. Well, of course we have many things to tweak. It's not all bad, and I think it's very much part of the French kind of like persona and personality to have a little bit of superiority, not just over Americans, but over just everybody, and think France is the best. So I do understand that, that's just kind of the natural thing to do in France, is to kind of criticize. But in the US, we're, as I said, a little bit more sensitive, a little bit less into the criticism. So when you're visiting the US, I would just say leave a little bit of that teasing, like superiority at home, and just try to focus on some of the really cool stuff that you can see in the US. All right, guys, I hope you liked my 7.
Enjoyed
That was good, yeah.
Yeah, part 1 was good. Part 2 was good. Let us know in the comments if you want us to do more of his channel. We do have another video on the list, don't we?
Yeah.
So you'll be seeing that in the next few days. Like I say, if you enjoyed it, smash that button, smash the subscribe button. Yeah, we know what not to do.
Yeah.
In the US now.
Yeah, definitely. That's good.
Let us know some more in the comments below, which isn't covered on this list, because we'd appreciate all your guys' input. And what should we do?
Have a fantastic day.
And we'll see you legends in the next one. Peace.